I got Ken from my job, so I packed my bags and headed back to the 6th, spending my days playing Mahjong with Grandma. Meanwhile, my whole family was freaking out, searching high and low for me. Turns out, my genius jewelry designer sister couldn't sketch a thing after I left. Last time around, at the National Jewelry Design Competition, my little sister always managed to whip up designs that were carbon copies of mine. But like 5 minutes sooner. Everyone accused me of plagiarism, and my own family jumped on the bandwagon to testify against me. The company decided I was a liability, a copycat ruining their reputation, so they handed me a pink slip and a bill for damages. My family treated me like dead weight, kicking me to the curb. The weight of their betrayal and public shame crushed me, and I spiraled into depression. I ended up getting mowed down by one of my sister's crazed fans while walking down the street. Before blacking out, I couldn't figure out how my sister always got her hands on my designs first. Then, bam, I woke up, back to the day before the National Jewelry Design Competition. Ashley, you feeling confident about the competition? The office chatter snapped me back to reality. I couldn't believe it. I was reliving it all. Ash has won the company's Designer of the Year award like 3 times in a row. Of course, she's confident. She bumped my shoulder with a smile. I was at a loss because I knew what was coming last time around at the National Design Competition. I submitted my design one. I had poured my heart and soul into 4 days. Then boom, I was accused of straight-up plagiarism. The organizers flashed 2 designs on the screen, identical down to the tiniest detail, including the flower patterns. But the kicker, my sister Madison had submitted hers first. She stood below the stage, eyes red, staring at me like she couldn't believe it. She grabbed the mic, shouting, "Ashley, why would you copy my work? If you're stuck, I can help you find inspiration." "Why would you do this?" I froze. It was my design. I'd kept it locked away on my computer, never showed it to anyone. I tried to explain, but the crowd was already chanting, "Copycat, get off the stage. You don't deserve to be a designer." What a joke. I snatched the mic, trying to defend myself, but only a few people believed me. Then, my parents trotted out photos of Madison burning the midnight oil. They said they regretted having a daughter like me and disowned me on the spot. That was it. Nobody believed me anymore. I was escorted out by security, and my phone blew up with hate. I checked my computer for viruses, backdoors, anything. The computer and my sketches were always with me. How could this happen? How could Madison have an exact copy of my design? All my ideas, sketches, they came from me. I would never plagiarize her. "Ashley, I heard your sister's in the competition too. Who do you think will win?" Soon after I joined this company, Madison somehow joined as well. Hearing that made my stomach drop. My hands clenched into fists like they wanted to break skin. My little sister Madison, when she was born, she didn't cry like other babies. Mom thought something was wrong and brought in a psychic. The guy walked in and fixated on me. He claimed my aura clashed with Madison's, making her weak. He said I was stealing her life force. He said I had to move out so Madison could survive. The alternative? She wouldn't live past 25. From that day on, my parents were desperate to get rid of me. Maybe I sense it, because I tried everything to please Madison, to stay. I gave her my favorite toys while her room overflowed with brand new dolls. I went to greet her, and saw that innocent, cute smile. But I was wrong. She knocked down the blocks and sat there, and started crying. My parents rushed to her, but I stood there. Then Mom's hand slapped across my face. My ears rang, and blood trickled down my lip. I knew then that Madison and I could never get along. They sent me to live with Grandma. She raised me all by herself. A few years ago, my parents suddenly asked me to come home. I wanted their love, so I agreed. I sat at my desk, staring at my designs on the computer. Madison had spent her life learning to dance. When did she start studying art and design? I asked my colleagues if I could see Madison's past design submissions. Soon a file with Madison's designs landed in my inbox. I went through them. The more I looked, the more my stomach churned. These designs were identical to mine. Some of them I hadn't even made public, and all these had already been released. It was impossible. Some designs were intended to be part of a portfolio for when I would one day start my own business. Nobody knew. I deleted my designs on my computer and tried to calm down. I've died and come back. There must be something I'm missing. I studied art and design since high school and graduated with high marks, then chose to continue with jewelry design. I was stable in my art skills and knowledge. I calmed myself and strengthened my will. I didn't know how she was doing it, but I would redesign everything. I closed my computer, too scared to use it, in case I was copied. I took out some paper and started designing a new set of jewelry. After deciding on the structure and materials, I started drawing. I looked at my work. It was a ring made of intertwined purple gold wires and a platinum violet with a purple stone in the center. It had a mystical, elegant feel. I named it Violet Kiss. Wow. Madison released a new design and it's beautiful. I frowned. New design? This design is amazing. Ashley, your sister is so talented. I wish I was you. The office was buzzing. Everyone looked at their phones and I saw that Madison had posted a picture on WeChat. I'll keep working hard to show everyone more great designs. Here is Violet Kiss. I looked at the photo, and my eyes widened. It was the design I just created. How could Madison post it first? Someone walked past my desk and picked up my drawing. Look, this is the same as Madison's post. Everyone gathered. It's identical. I froze and reached out to grab the drawing, but someone pushed me. Ashley, are you trying to plagiarize your sister? They spoke like they had heard gossip. I can't believe she would do this. Her designs are similar to Madison's. Did anyone notice? People compared my designs to Madison's. I grabbed my drawing. This is mine. Madison is plagiarizing my work. Madison walked in. She wore a short white dress. Her eyes were red and wet, and she sounded like she was crying. Why are you stealing my work? I know you don't like me, but that's from the heart. Ever since you came home, you don't like me. Are you blaming Mom and Dad? Everyone was sympathetic to her. Someone pushed me from behind, and I slammed into the desk. Blood ran down my cheek. Madison pretended to pull me up, but fell. What the hell? There are so many people here. She pretended to be hurt and looked at me innocently. Why did you push me? I was trying to pull you up. Everyone rushed to help her and screamed at me. Ashley, stop it. Do you regret plagiarism? Are you mad? It's okay, Madison. Let her be. She deserves to die. Madison stood up and acted sad. She's still my sister, I don't mind. I laughed. You're a mistaken sister. Come here and I'll tell you something. Madison got closer. I looked at her and slapped her across the face. She fell. Oops, sisters, sorry. Madison sat on the floor covering her face and glared at me. Then she looked up and pretended to be innocent. I don't have time to deal with her. I got up and left. I went to the clinic. My cut was wrapped. I got home and no one was there. I went to my room and started burning my drawings. Nothing was missing. How was Madison doing it? Am I crazy? The company chat was going crazy. This cockroach should leave. Kick her out. She looks proud but is a plagiarist. These messages reminded me of the last time. My phone was blowing up. People were scolding, insulting, and mocking me. I took out the SIM card. They found my apartment and waited with cameras. Someone put up a sign, plagiarist, just die. I stayed inside for over a week. One night, I left through the grass. I was starving. I sat and ate a bun. A child threw a water bottle at me. Mom, that's the thief. They even spat on me. I was not upset, but I smiled. His mom took him away. I hated this. One day, I sat on the roof with no emotion. The city was so ugly. The only one I miss is my grandmother. I snapped out of it. I packed and submitted my resignation. I won't go to the competition. I don't understand how Madison always created the same designs first. I won't draw and see what she creates. I locked myself in my room, staring at the empty desk where my sketches once piled up. If I didn't draw, if I didn't design, what would Madison do? I spent the next few days in complete silence, watching, waiting. My phone kept buzzing with messages, coworkers gossiping, strangers hurling insults, threats stacking up like bricks in a wall trapping me inside. But I ignored it all. I had one goal now: to see what happened if I created nothing. On the third day, the office chat exploded with excitement. Madison had just unveiled a brand new design. My hands trembled as I clicked the link. There it was, another intricate piece, eerily similar to the aesthetic I had always pursued, but different. The lines, the structure, the elegance. Madison had created something without me. Or so it seemed. I scrutinized every detail, every curve, every choice of material, and my stomach twisted. This wasn't just similar to my usual designs. This was something I had thought about before, a concept I had considered in passing but never put on paper. My mind raced. Was it a coincidence? No. It was too perfect, too close to the fleeting ideas I had kept locked inside my own thoughts. My fingers dug into my palms. How? How was she doing this? I hadn't touched a pencil, hadn't opened my laptop, hadn't even let my thoughts linger too long on any single design, and yet there it was, my own discarded inspiration, paraded around as Madison's original work. The truth hit me like ice down my spine. This wasn't about stolen files. It wasn't about spyware. Madison was getting my ideas directly from my head. But how? I thought back to every moment, every interaction. The way she had always been one step ahead, the way she mirrored my work, the way she manipulated people into believing her every word. Was it some kind of intuition? No, that didn't explain the precision, the exactness of it all. There was something unnatural about it, something that defied logic. My mind went back to childhood, to that psychic who had told my parents our auras clashed, that I was stealing Madison's life force. What if it had always been the other way around? What if, somehow, Madison had the ability to steal from me, not just my work, not just my reputation, but my very thoughts? I pressed my fingers against my temples, trying to piece it together. If she could read my mind, if she had some way of siphoning my ideas before I even acted on them, then what could I do? If I fought back, if I tried to expose her, she would always be a step ahead. If I stayed silent, she would keep taking everything that was mine. I needed proof. But how do you prove something you can't even see? I needed a trap. That night, I sat in the dark, forcing my mind to stay blank, to think about nothing. Then, deliberately, I crafted a new design, but only in my imagination. I visualized every detail. A necklace made of delicate silver strands twisted into the shape of ivy, small emeralds embedded like dewdrops catching the morning light. I named it Whispering Ivy. I didn't draw it. I didn't write it down. I didn't even move my hands as I imagined it. I simply let the idea exist in my head. And then I waited. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. "Madison's new design is breathtaking," someone in the office chat wrote. My breath caught as I clicked the link. There it was, Whispering Ivy, exactly as I had imagined it. Not a single element changed. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. This was it. This was the proof I needed. But what could I do with it? If I told anyone, who would believe me? They already saw me as a plagiarist, a liar, a fraud. If I confronted Madison, she would twist the narrative again, play the victim, turn the world against me. No, I needed to be smart. I needed to turn the game against her. I needed to feed her a lie. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, constructing a new design in my mind. But this time, I made sure it was wrong. Hideous, clumsy, completely unmarketable. A ring with uneven edges, a clash of gaudy colors, an absurd mix of metals that would tarnish on contact. I imagined it in perfect detail, gave it a name, even envisioned the fake inspiration behind it. Then I waited. If Madison stole this, she would expose herself. Days passed. Then, just as I predicted, the announcement came. Madison's latest design is kind of weird, right? I scrolled through the office chat, pulse racing. Someone posted a screenshot of her new design. There it was, my ugly, absurd, completely ridiculous fake creation. People were confused, some hesitated, unwilling to criticize their golden girl, but others weren't as kind. This doesn't look like her usual work. It's kind of bad? What was she thinking? For the first time, doubt crept into their voices. The blind worship wavered. Madison must have realized something was wrong because she deleted the post within hours, but the damage was done. Screenshots spread, people questioned, and I knew this was only the beginning. I had cracked the code. Now I just had to tear her apart. Madison had always been untouchable, always one step ahead, always basking in the spotlight that was rightfully mine. But now, for the first time, a crack had formed in her perfect facade. The whispers had begun, the doubt had taken root, and I knew I couldn't stop now. I had to push further, had to make her fall, and I had to do it in a way that left no room for her to slither out of the consequences. So I played the game. I acted defeated, as if her latest stunt had broken me completely, as if I was finally giving up. I withdrew even more at work, kept my head down, let people sneer and whisper without fighting back. I wanted her to feel secure again, to think she had regained control, to think I was no longer a threat. But in my mind, I was already planning my next move. I started feeding her more bad designs, more absurd, impractical, tasteless ideas, each one crafted carefully to be just plausible enough to seem real, but awful enough to raise questions. And she took the bait every single time. One by one, her new designs started failing. The praise she once received so effortlessly began to dwindle, replaced by confused comments, half-hearted compliments, and finally, outright criticism. I watched as her confidence wavered, as she struggled to understand what was going wrong. She had stolen my work for so long, relied on it, built her entire identity around it, and now, without realizing it, she was sabotaging herself with my carefully planted failures. But it wasn't enough. I needed to destroy her completely. I needed to expose her, to make everyone see what she really was. And for that, I needed undeniable proof, something she couldn't twist or manipulate. So I laid my final trap. I imagined a masterpiece, something so breathtakingly beautiful, so innovative, so unique that it would captivate the entire industry. I spent days crafting it in my mind, perfecting every last detail, pouring every ounce of my real talent into this one creation. But like before, I never wrote it down, never sketched it, never let it exist anywhere except in my thoughts. And then I waited. Days passed, then a week. And then, like clockwork, Madison unveiled her latest masterpiece. I felt the rush of victory before I even saw it. I already knew what I would find. Already knew it would be an exact replica of the vision I had created in my mind. But seeing it with my own eyes still sent a shiver through me. There it was, my work, my true masterpiece, stolen right out of my own thoughts and paraded around as hers. The reactions were immediate. The industry exploded with admiration. This was the kind of design that defined careers, that won competitions, that cemented legends. But this time, I was ready. The moment Madison posted it, I made my move. I contacted a journalist, one who had covered my plagiarism scandal in the past, one who had dragged my name through the mud without hesitation. But now I had something she couldn't ignore, a story bigger than she had ever imagined. I told her everything, every detail, every piece of proof. And then I made sure she had something irrefutable. I arranged a meeting, had her sit with me, and right there, in front of her eyes, I did what Madison had always done. I closed my eyes, pretended to be lost in thought, and after a few minutes, I described my next design out loud, something completely new, something I had never mentioned before. The journalist took notes, recorded everything, and then we waited. It took 3 days. 3 days before Madison's next big design appeared online, exactly as I had described it. The journalist wasted no time. The article dropped like a bomb, exposing Madison in a way she could never recover from. The evidence was too perfect, too damning. Screenshots, timestamps, detailed explanations of how every single design of hers had been stolen straight from my mind. The industry turned on her in an instant. The admiration, the praise, the opportunities, everything vanished. The same people who once worshipped her tore her apart. Accusations of fraud, demands for explanations, companies pulling their contracts. And Madison? She had nothing. No defense, no way to explain how she had produced designs that had never even existed outside of my thoughts. She tried to play the victim, to cry, to act as though she had been wronged, but this time no one believed her. This time the world saw her for what she really was. My parents called, desperate, panicked. They wanted to talk, to understand, to fix things. I ignored them. I had no more words for them, no more love to give. They had thrown me away once, and now they could watch as the daughter they chose over me crumbled into nothing. Madison disappeared from the public eye. Her career was over, her name forever tied to the greatest scandal the design industry had ever seen. And me? For the first time, I was free. Free from her shadow, free from the weight of her theft, free to finally create, to finally live. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because Madison had stolen something more than just my designs. She had stolen my life. And I had a feeling she wasn't going to let me keep it. Madison vanished. But I knew better than to believe she was truly gone. She was like a shadow, clinging to the edges of my life, waiting for the right moment to strike back. The scandal had obliterated her reputation, torn apart the careful image she had built over the years. And yet, something inside me whispered that she wouldn't just accept defeat. No, she had spent too long stealing from me, thriving off my existence, molding her success from the pieces of my soul. People like Madison didn't simply disappear. They waited, they watched, they plotted, and I was ready. After everything, after years of betrayal, torment, gaslighting, I had finally reclaimed what was mine. The world saw me as the true designer now, the one with talent, vision, originality. The company that once shunned me now wanted me back. The industry that spat on my name now whispered it in admiration. It was a strange thing, seeing people who had once accused me of plagiarism suddenly acting as though they had always believed in me. The hypocrisy was suffocating, but I played along. I smiled at the executives, nodded at the journalists, shook hands with the designers who had once dismissed me, because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about survival. I wouldn't let them push me down again. So I returned to the design world. But this time on my terms. No more companies dictating my worth. No more toxic workplaces filled with whispers and backstabbing. I launched my own brand, started fresh, built something from the ground up with nothing but my raw talent and unbreakable will. And it worked. Orders flooded in. My designs were in demand. I was finally, truly free, or so I thought. The first sign that Madison wasn't done with me came in the form of a message. It was anonymous, of course, but I knew. Enjoying my life, sister. The word sent a chill down my spine. There was no proof it was her. No way to trace it, but I didn't need confirmation. I just knew, and it didn't stop there. Strange things started happening. My emails were hacked, my personal sketches leaked online before I even had the chance to announce them. Customers began receiving fake messages, warning them that my designs were stolen. Articles popped up. Subtle at first, questioning if maybe, just maybe, I had indeed copied Madison all along. Someone was trying to rewrite the narrative, to twist reality until I was once again the villain. I tightened security, hired experts to track the leaks, but whoever was behind it was careful, methodical, a ghost in the system. And then, the final blow. A lawsuit. Filed against me, claiming intellectual property theft. The plaintiff? Madison King. I stared at the papers in disbelief. The audacity, the sheer insanity of it. After everything, after all the evidence, all the exposure, she still had the nerve to fight back? My lawyer assured me it was baseless, that it would never hold up in court. But that wasn't the point. Madison didn't need to win. She just needed to create doubt, to drag me through the mud, to make people question, to remind the world that I was once accused of being a fraud. And it worked. Online forums exploded with debates. Some people defended me, loyal to the truth, but others latched onto the controversy like vultures. Maybe Madison was framed, they speculated. Maybe Ashley was the thief all along. It didn't matter that the evidence was stacked against her. It didn't matter that she had been exposed as a liar. People loved a scandal, and Madison knew exactly how to manipulate public opinion. And then she made her move. A live interview. I watched the screen as Madison, my once adoring, once innocent little sister, sat before the cameras, her eyes red-rimmed, her voice trembling with carefully crafted emotion. "I just want the truth to come out," she whispered, tears glistening under the studio lights. Ashley has always been talented, but she's also always been jealous. She never wanted me to succeed. When I started designing, she was furious. She told me I didn't deserve to be in her world. My stomach twisted. Lies wrapped in just enough truth to be believable. I tried to love her, Madison continued, dabbing at her eyes. I really did, but she's always had this darkness inside her. And when she realized I was better than her, she decided to destroy me. The interviewer leaned in, feigning concern. "Are you saying she orchestrated the scandal against you?" Madison hesitated, just long enough to make it seem like she was reluctant. Hesitant, the perfect victim. I don't know, but it's strange, isn't it? How everything happened so fast. How she just happened to have the perfect evidence against me. I mean, who can really prove where ideas come from? That was all it took, just a seed of doubt. The comments flooded in. Maybe she has a point. Maybe Ashley set her up. Maybe we were wrong about Madison. I clenched my fists, rage burning through me. She was good. I had underestimated just how deep her manipulation ran, just how far she was willing to go. She wasn't trying to win. She was trying to erase me, to rewrite history until she was the victim and I was the monster. And worst of all, it was working. The lawsuit dragged on. The media twisted every detail, turning it into a spectacle. My sales dropped. Sponsors backed out. The company that had begged me to return suddenly became distant, unwilling to be associated with controversy. It was happening again. The isolation, the whispers, the slow, crushing weight of public perception turning against me. But I wasn't the same girl from before. I had learned. I had adapted. And I wasn't going to let Madison win. Not this time. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went back to where it all began. To my parents' house. The place I had once called home. The place I had been cast out from. My mother opened the door, surprise flickering across her face. "Ashley?" My father stood behind her. Wary. I could see the hesitation, the years of resentment still clinging to them. But I wasn't here for them. I was here for answers. "I need to see Madison's room," I said, my voice steady, unwavering. My mother faltered. "She's not here." "I know," I said, "but I think she left something behind." And I was right. Because as I stepped into that room, the one that had always been filled with dolls, with trophies, with proof of Madison's perfection, I found it. The one thing she had never meant for me to see. The proof that she wasn't just stealing my designs, she was stealing something much, much worse. Inside Madison's room, everything was in its place, untouched, pristine, as if she had never left. The shelves were lined with awards, photos of her smiling with industry elites, perfectly staged moments of success. But the air was stale, heavy, carrying a sense of something lurking beneath the surface, something unseen but present. I moved with purpose, scanning for anything out of place, anything that could explain how she had managed to anticipate my every design, how she had invaded my mind as if she had lived inside my head. Then, I found it. A small silver laptop tucked inside her desk drawer, hidden beneath a stack of old sketches. It was strange. Madison always flaunted her possessions, always made sure people knew what she had. But this laptop wasn't like the sleek, high-end devices she paraded around the office. This was old, scuffed, as if it had been handled too much, opened and closed countless times. My heart pounded as I opened it, expecting passwords, encryption, something to stop me. But it was already logged in. Madison had been in a rush when she left, and she had made a mistake. The screen flickered to life, revealing folders upon folders, labeled with names that sent ice through my veins. Ashley Designs, Ashley Concepts, Ashley Private. My hands clenched into fists. I clicked the first one. Dozens of images filled the screen. My designs, my sketches, my private notes. They weren't just stolen, they were cataloged, dated, documented. There were even drafts, pieces I had abandoned, experiments that had never seen the light of day. She had everything. My breaths came sharp and shallow as I dug deeper. Emails, logs, messages, a web of stolen work spanning years. But then I found something worse, a program, running silently in the background. I clicked on it, my stomach twisting as the interface loaded. It was connected to a cloud server, a network of surveillance files. And then it hit me, the cameras. The night I had returned home years ago, the feeling of being watched, the paranoia I had dismissed as stress. Madison hadn't been guessing my designs. She had been watching me create them in real time. I opened the logs, scrolling through time-stamped entries. She had access to my laptop's camera, my phone's microphone. Every conversation, every late-night sketching session, every private thought I had muttered to myself while working, she had seen it all. A strangled sound left my throat. It had never been about talent, about inspiration. It had been a game to her. A long, sick game where she played the genius and I played the fool. And it worked. For years, she had fed off me, twisting my work into her own, pushing me to the edge while she took the credit. The betrayal was suffocating. But then my eyes caught something else, a folder marked Final. I hesitated, then clicked. A video file. I pressed play. The screen filled with grainy footage, Madison sitting at her desk, staring straight into the camera, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke. "If you found this, Ashley, then I guess I didn't cover my tracks well enough." My blood turned to ice. Or maybe I wanted you to find it. My hands shook as she leaned forward, her expression shifting into something I had never seen before, something too knowing, too calm. "You think you've won, don't you?" she whispered. "That exposing me will fix everything? That people will finally see the real me?" A slow, twisted smile spread across her lips. "You don't get it. They don't care." My heartbeat pounded in my ears. "People love a villain, Ashley. They love a victim. And I've been both. It doesn't matter what's true. It matters what they believe." She leaned back, exhaling like she was enjoying this, like she had planned every second of it. "You've always been naive, always thought that talent alone would save you, that the truth would win." Her voice dropped lower. "But I know something you don't." My grip on the laptop tightened. "You're not the only one being watched." A sharp knock on the front door made me jump. The laptop nearly slipped from my grasp as I snapped my head toward the sound. My parents were frozen in the hallway, their faces pale. Another knock, louder this time. "Ashley King?" A voice called from outside. Authority, stern, unyielding. My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. "Police." I barely had time to process before my father moved to open the door. Wait, but it was too late. The door swung open, revealing two uniformed officers standing in the doorway, their expressions blank. Professional. "Ms. King," one of them said, eyes locking onto mine. "We need you to come with us." I swallowed, my mind racing. What is this about?" "You're under investigation," the officer continued, "for cyber harassment, theft of intellectual property, and corporate espionage." The world tilted. No, this wasn't happening. This was impossible. But then Madison's words echoed in my head. "You're not the only one being watched." I felt sick. She knew I would find this. She had set a trap, timed it perfectly. While I was busy uncovering her crimes, she had planted her own against me. I had the evidence, the proof, but in the eyes of the law, so did she. And she had gotten to them first. The officers stepped forward. "Ms. King, please don't make this difficult." My mother gasped. My father said nothing. I stood there frozen, the weight of it all crashing down. Madison hadn't just stolen my work. She had stolen my identity, and now she was trying to erase me completely. The cold metal of the handcuffs bit into my wrists as the officers led me out of my parents' house. My mother was crying, but she didn't reach for me. My father stood frozen, unreadable, his silence louder than any accusation. I barely heard the officers reading my rights. Madison's words echoed louder in my head. "You're not the only one being watched." My heart pounded as I was forced into the back seat of the police car, the weight of this trap suffocating me. The evidence on Madison's laptop could clear me, but she had already turned the narrative against me. The world outside blurred as the car sped away, my mind racing through every possibility. I couldn't let this happen. I wouldn't let her win. The station was sterile, buzzing with quiet efficiency. They took my fingerprints. My mugshot confiscated my phone. They placed me in a small gray interrogation room, the fluorescent lights humming above. Minutes stretched into eternity before the door opened. A man in a dark suit entered, his gaze sharp and assessing. "Ashley King," he said, dropping a folder onto the table between us. "I'm Detective Harris. Do you know why you're here?" I kept my expression neutral. "I'd love to hear your version of it." He studied me, then opened the folder, revealing printed screenshots, emails, messages, design files, all altered to make me look like the thief. My stomach churned. Madison had built an entire case against me while I was digging through hers. She was always one step ahead. "The evidence against you is substantial," Harris said, tapping one of the pages. "Multiple instances of stolen designs, leaked confidential company information, and then there's the harassment complaint." "Harassment?" My voice cracked. "From Madison," he clarified. "She provided records of threatening messages, calls, even video footage of you breaking into her room." My breath hitched. The laptop. She had set me up, knowing I would go looking. I leaned forward. "Madison has been stealing from me for years. She had cameras. She hacked into my devices, stole my designs before I could release them. Everything you have in that folder is a lie." Harris didn't blink. "Then prove it." My jaw clenched. Her laptop. I found everything on it. The laptop that's still in her possession? He raised a brow. The one that, according to our records, has no sign of tampering? My blood turned to ice. Madison must have wiped it remotely, destroyed the evidence before the police could even consider looking. She didn't just frame me. She erased herself from the crime completely. My hands curled into fists, nails biting into my palms. This is a setup. Then help me understand, Harris said calmly. Why would your own sister go to such lengths to frame you? I laughed, a bitter sound. Because she doesn't need talent. She needs me. I've been designing her entire career. And now that I'm a liability, she's cutting me out permanently. Harris watched me, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned back, crossing his arms. If that's true, then what's her endgame? The question hit me like a brick. What was Madison's goal? Ruining me was one thing, but this? This was complete erasure. She wanted me gone. My stomach twisted. I don't know, I admitted. But I promise you, if you let me go, I'll find out. Harris exhaled slowly, tapping his fingers on the table. Then he closed the folder. For now, you're being released under investigation. But I warn you, Ashley, one wrong move, and this case will close in her favor. The weight of his words pressed against my ribs as I was led out of the station. Outside, the air was thick, suffocating. The moment I stepped onto the sidewalk, cameras flashed. Reporters swarmed, microphones shoved in my face. Ashley, do you have anything to say about the accusations? Did you really steal Madison's designs? Is it true you've been harassing your sister for years? The world believed her. They always believed her. My hands trembled as I pushed through the crowd. My parents weren't waiting for me. I was alone. Again. I hailed a cab, giving the driver my grandmother's address. The ride was silent, my thoughts a storm of betrayal and rage. Madison wanted me out of the picture. But why now? What was she planning? The answer came the moment I stepped inside my grandmother's house. Her small TV was on, tuned to a live press conference, and there she was, Madison standing on a stage, smiling through fake tears. This has been a painful experience, she said, voice trembling. I never wanted this to be public, but I can't stay silent anymore. I love my sister, but she needs help. My breath caught in my throat. She suffered from jealousy for years, Madison continued. She's always wanted what I have. I tried to be patient, to forgive her, but I can't ignore the damage she's done. I just want her to get better. My fingers dug into my arms. She wasn't just destroying my reputation. She was painting me as unstable, dangerous. And then, the final blow. I've decided to step back from the competition, Madison said, dabbing at her eyes. I won't let this situation ruin what's supposed to be a celebration of creativity. But I will be launching my own brand, a jewelry line that represents hope and resilience. A fresh start. My blood ran cold. That's why she did this. She didn't just want me gone, she wanted to erase everything I had built. The competition, the company, the industry, I had spent my whole life fighting for a place in it. And now, she was taking it for herself. And the world adored her for it. My grandmother turned to me, her expression soft but firm. What are you going to do, child? I clenched my fists. Madison thought she had won, thought she had finally buried me for good. But she had underestimated one thing. I wasn't the same Ashley she had destroyed before. I had been given a second chance. And I was going to burn her empire to the ground. The world saw Madison as the victim, the misunderstood genius who had endured years of torment at the hands of her jealous sister. Every news outlet ran with her version of the story, painting me as an obsessed failure who couldn't handle her success. Social media was worse. Hashtags calling for my permanent ban from the industry, people dissecting my past, twisting every moment into proof that I had always been envious, unstable, dangerous. Every door was shutting in my face. The competition board released a statement formally banning me from all future events. My former employer announced a full investigation into my misconduct, and the clients I had once built relationships with cut all ties overnight. Madison had planned this meticulously, and I had walked right into her trap. But she had underestimated me. She thought she had destroyed me, erased me from the industry forever, but she had only given me one thing: clarity. I finally understood what I was up against. She had taken everything from me, but she had also given me nothing left to lose. I spent the next few days in my grandmother's house, going through every memory, every detail that could lead me to the truth. Madison had always been one step ahead, always managing to outmaneuver me. It wasn't just about hacking into my devices or copying my designs. She had an advantage I still didn't fully understand. But there had to be something, some flaw in her perfect web of lies. The answer came when I least expected it. Late one night, as I sat in the dim glow of my laptop, scrolling through old files, I heard a soft knock on the door. My grandmother was asleep, so I approached cautiously. When I opened it, I was met with a pair of nervous eyes. Lena, an old colleague from the company. Ashley, she whispered, glancing around before slipping inside. I don't have much time. I need to tell you something. My heart pounded as she pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. It was an email thread between Madison and someone else. The subject line made my stomach twist. Updates on the system. The messages were brief, but they confirmed my worst fear. Madison hadn't just been hacking me. She had help. I found this on the office server, Lena whispered. I don't know who she was talking to, but she's been receiving real-time updates on everything you've done for years. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about copying my work. Madison had been monitoring me in ways I hadn't even considered. How? I asked, gripping her wrist. How is she doing this? Lena hesitated, then lowered her voice. The office computers. The ones we all use to log in, submit our designs. The system was compromised. I staggered back. The system? Not just the system, she continued. Your devices, your files, even your private messages. Someone's been feeding her everything in real time. That's how she always knew what you were working on. That's how she always submitted first. My mind reeled. Madison hadn't just stolen my designs. She had been inside my life, watching, waiting, ensuring she could always be one step ahead. And whoever she was working with had the kind of access that made this look effortless. My stomach churned as I realized the truth. This wasn't just about sibling rivalry. This was a long-term strategy, a calculated campaign to keep me beneath her, and I had never even seen it coming. Who else knows about this? I asked. Lena shook her head. No one. The IT team was forced to sign NDAs. I only found this by accident. And Madison? She's already scrubbing everything, she whispered. By the time anyone looks into it, the evidence will be gone. A cold rage settled inside me. Madison had spent years manipulating me, tearing me down, making sure I never rose too high. But this time, she had made a mistake. She had left a trail. I need that email, I said. Lena hesitated, but after a moment, she forwarded it. Be careful. Ashley, she said before slipping out into the night. The moment the door closed, I exhaled sharply. This was it. Proof that Madison wasn't working alone. Proof that her entire career was built on deception. But it still wasn't enough. Not yet. If I was going to take her down, I needed more than an email. I needed to expose her completely. To turn the public against her the way she had turned them against me. And there was only one way to do that. I needed to get close. I needed to make her think she had won. The next morning, I did something no one expected. I made a public statement. I admitted defeat. I told the world that I was stepping away from design, that I was reflecting on my mistakes, that I had been lost in my own jealousy, and had finally realized the truth. Madison was the true talent. I praised her. I apologized to her. I told the press that I wished her nothing but success. The reaction was immediate. News outlets broadcasted my confession, calling it the redemption arc of the decade. Social media exploded with mixed reactions. Some believed I was finally coming to my senses, while others thought it was a desperate attempt to salvage what little was left of my reputation. And Madison? She basked in the glory. She posted a heartfelt response, saying she forgave me, that she was glad I had finally found peace. That she had always believed I had potential, but I had been too blinded by jealousy to see it. The final knife in my back. But I smiled, because she had taken the bait. A week later, I reached out to her directly. I asked to meet. I told her I wanted to make things right, that I wanted to support her new brand, that I was finally done fighting. And she agreed. The moment I stepped into the private lounge where we were set to meet, I saw it in her eyes. The smug satisfaction of someone who believed they had won. She hugged me like a sister who had been waiting for this moment, like she had finally tamed the wild, rebellious sibling who refused to fall in line. Ashley, she whispered. I'm so glad you came. I hugged her back. But my smile was razor sharp. Because Madison had made the one mistake she never should have. She let me get close again. And I was about to burn her entire world to the ground. Madison thought she had won, that I had finally crumbled beneath the weight of her deception. But she had no idea that I was the one who had set the final trap. As I sat across from her in the luxurious private lounge, watching her sip her wine with that infuriating, triumphant smile, I felt nothing but cold determination. She believed she had stripped me of everything, my career, my reputation, my dignity. But there was one thing she had failed to take. My will to fight. It feels good to put everything behind us, doesn't it? She said, swirling the wine in her glass. Eyes gleaming with victory. I forced a soft laugh, nodding as I leaned forward. It really does. I was lost for a long time, Madison. I see that now. I don't know why I ever tried to compete with you. Her lips curled slightly, satisfaction radiating from her like heat. You always had potential, Ashley. You just needed to stop chasing things that weren't meant for you. I clenched my fists beneath the table, forcing my expression to remain composed. She really believed her own lies. She had convinced herself that she deserved everything she stole from me, that I had been the villain in her story all along. I let the silence stretch, feigning contemplation before speaking again. I actually wanted to talk to you about something that's been on my mind for a while. She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Oh? I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. I think you should see this. She hesitated before picking it up, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the screen as she read the email thread I had received from Lena. The blood drained from her face. "Where did you get this?" she whispered, her grip tightening on the phone. I leaned in, dropping the act entirely. "You were never as smart as you thought you were, Madison." Her breath hitched, her entire demeanor shifting from smug confidence to barely contained panic. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, my voice steady, calm. "I know you had access to my files. I know you had someone feeding you information from inside the company. I know that every single design you ever submitted was stolen from me." She shook her head, placing the phone down with forced composure. "You have no proof." I smiled. "I have enough. Enough to make people start questioning, enough to make the company dig deeper. And once they do, once they follow the trail, they'll find everything." I saw the moment fear truly took hold. She had spent so long controlling the narrative, but now the walls were closing in. "Why are you doing this?" she hissed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because you ruined my life," I said simply. "And now, I'm returning the favor." She stared at me, her mind racing, trying to find a way out. But there was none. For the first time in her life, she was the one trapped. Then, as if a switch flipped, her fear turned into something else. Desperation. Rage. "You think you've won?" she spat, pushing back from the table. "You think you can destroy me?" She grabbed her bag, shoving her phone inside. "I don't care what you think you have. No one will believe you over me. I own this industry now, Ashley. I own the world." I stood, watching as she stormed toward the exit, her entire world unraveling in real time. But I wasn't done yet. "Madison," I called, making her stop just as she reached the door. She turned slowly, her expression twisted with barely contained fury. "You forgot one thing," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "I've already sent everything to the press." Her face went pale. "You're lying." "Am I?" I tilted my head. "Check your phone." She fumbled, pulling it out, and the moment she saw the notifications, I knew it was over. News outlets, social media, industry insiders, they all had the files now. The story was spreading like wildfire. The golden girl of the jewelry world, the genius designer exposed as a fraud. The room spun around her as she realized there was no escape. "No," she whispered, shaking her head violently. "No, no, no!" She lunged at me, but I sidestepped effortlessly, watching as she stumbled forward, crashing into the table. Glass shattered, wine spilling like blood across the white tablecloth. She looked up at me, wild-eyed, frantic. "You think this is over? I won't let you." She stopped abruptly, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place. Then, to my utter disbelief, she smiled. A slow, eerie smile that sent a chill down my spine. "You don't understand, do you?" she murmured, standing to her full height. "I was never going to let you win." Before I could react, she grabbed the nearest broken wine glass and lunged. Pain exploded in my shoulder as the glass sliced into my skin. I gasped, stumbling back, gripping the wound as blood seeped through my fingers. Madison stood there, breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling with unrestrained fury. "If I go down, I'm taking you with me," she snarled. She raised the glass again, but this time I was ready. I grabbed her wrist, twisting it sharply. She screamed as the glass fell from her hand, shattering against the floor. I shoved her backward, sending her staggering toward the open balcony doors. She caught herself, eyes wide with realization as she looked behind her. The city light stretched far below, an endless abyss waiting to swallow her whole. "Madison," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is where your story ends." She lunged again, but her movements were wild, reckless. I stepped aside at the last second, and her own momentum carried her too far. She gasped as her foot slipped against the edge of the balcony. For a single heartbeat, she teetered there, suspended between life and death. Then, she fell. A scream tore through the night, cut off abruptly as her body hit the pavement below. Silence. I stood there, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my heart pounding like a drum. It was over. Madison was gone. The weight of everything crashed down on me at once, and I sank to my knees, staring at my blood-streaked hands. The sirens came soon after. Flashing lights, panicked voices, people shouting. But I didn't move. I couldn't. The war was finally over. Madison had spent her life trying to erase me, to bury me beneath her lies. But in the end, she had destroyed herself. And as I sat there, staring at the spot where she had fallen, I felt nothing. No regret, no sorrow. Just the quiet realization that, for the first time in years, I was free.